so many different ways to enter this profession that's our key is we really want everyone to feel welcome. And we don't care what your background is. We don't care what your educational level is. As long as you're willing to work hard and really learn what turf grass really is all about and the best ways to manage it and how to put your best foot forward and your best field forward, really, that's the key.
Hi there. Welcome to the Connecting KC podcast. I'm Rachel Kilmer, also known as Rach the Realtor on the internet, where I love, connecting all things KC. I'm a metro area real estate agent, retired sports reporter, and mom, and probably too old to call myself a TikToker, but honestly, that's how we got here. You can learn more at www.rachtherealtorkc.com. But this show is all about introducing you to all of the movers and shakers, interesting people, heartfelt stories, and funny quirks that make this vibrant community home. So let's get right to it with today's episode of Connecting KC. Welcome into today's episode of Connecting Kansas City. I am excited to introduce you to Laura Simmons. She is the CEO of the Sports Field Management Association, which is based out of Lawrence, Kansas. Prior to serving in this role, Laura served as Deputy Director for the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards and has more than 2 decades of experience serving associations and working in the world of property management. Simmons received her MBA from Webster University and a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Kansas and has been recognized as a certified association executive from the American Society of Association Executives. There's a society for everything. Laura, welcome to the show today. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. So let's start there. How do you end up working in the field of associations?
It was pure happenstance. I was actually working in retail because the economy was not great when I got out of college. And I applied for an office manager position, and it just happened to be with an association. And it was a very small staff. There were only 4 of us. And so I kind of got introduced to all different aspects of association management. And I just fell in love with it. I loved working with the members. I loved helping them and supporting them, coming up with programs and helping them work together. So, I just, like I said, fell in love with it. And so I just have continued on ever since for the most part.
I really have never thought of this as a field one could even work in. You think of people working for not-for-profits, but specifically for associations. How many are you a member of currently?
I'm actually a member of 2. So the American Society of Association Executives, as well as the Kansas City Society of Associations Executives. So it's a great way to network and learn from your peers and share information back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And your current role is with the Sports Field Management Association. So did you have a sports background at all, or was that completely new to you once you joined this org?
No sports background. I did have some green industry background. So that was, had been my introduction to it and actually what kind of piqued my interest because I did have that previous experience. I was like, well, this, I really liked working with those groups. I bet this would be a great group to work with as well. And so I kind of did a little digging and did my due diligence and decided this was a group I wanted to spend a lot of time with and be able to work with and support.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, what is SFMA, Sports Field Management Association? What is this organization? What do they do? Why is it important? All that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So SFMA was formed back in 1981 by 4 industry leaders, and really it was an effort to facilitate the sharing of ideas and information. And we're now up to about 2,500 professionals in our membership. And really we're dedicated to advancing athletic playing surface standards. The association recognizes leaders in sports industry and supporting our professionals. Our mission really is the safety of athletes, and that means of all ages and skill levels. So everything from Pee-wee all the way through the pros, as well as implementing the best practices in field management and ensuring that playable surface as well as the safe surface. We want to minimize the risk of injuries. And we're also really committed to being environmental stewards. So promoting practices that protect the environment, address concerns related to synthetic turf, fertilizers, weed and pest control, water usage, you know, basically using scientifically sound maintenance techniques, for the well-being of the athletes as well as the environment.
Yeah, I really honestly had never even thought about the environmental impact of these fields, which obviously is huge. Uh, am a huge sports fan and watch tons of sports, and field conditions is often a topic of conversation, especially in the NFL, where there's not a policy on whether they have to be artificial grass, what kind of grass. Some of the teams have turf, some fields are better than others. What does this organization do when an NFL player's injury becomes a storyline about field management? Is there a role for you guys to be an advocate for one thing or another, or kind of like what's your role in that dynamic?
We put ourselves out there as the experts. So if we, are able to, we will provide information regarding the field surface, the playability, all of those things. Our members manage both natural grass as well as synthetic turf. And so, we don't advocate for one or the other. But we do have a number of resources and social media, or not, excuse me, subject matter experts that we will provide to different media outlets to help them kind of understand it as they are reporting on these issues.
hmm Do you guys have data on things like this? This kind of turf is causes X number of energy injuries. This kind of grass grows better in January. I mean, is that kind of research something that's a part of what you guys do, or is that some people that are members do that for their work more?
Yeah, actually, we have a lot of members who are what we call academics. They work for different universities that have turf grass programs or do turf grass, like you said, research. A lot of them work on grants for the USDA, and so they provide a lot of that research for us and our members, as well as other green industry uh, professions like golf course superintendents and lawn and landscape companies. So they do a lot of that research and it's scientifically sound. And that is really the best way for us to move forward is to rely on those professionals who are the experts in doing that kind of data collection and analysis. It really is beneficial. And we do put it out to our members as well as other industries.
Sure, that makes sense. So, who is the average member of your organization? Seems like I didn't even begin to think to about all the different things that it touches. But yeah, golf, soccer, pee wee, professional. Who is it? Coaches? Is it field? I'm not sure what their role is called, but the people in charge of the fields for the professional teams. Like, who is your typical member?
Primarily, our typical member they are sports field managers. And we encourage all fields to look at getting these professionals because there is an art and a science to it. There's much more to it than mowing and seeding and fertilizing. You really do have to understand what turf grows in what areas, and all of the different facets that go into managing that field, as well as the environment and making sure it's a great field. There are a number of smaller communities that do not have sports field managers on staff. So some of them do rely on coaches. Some of them, rely on volunteers, dads and things. So our typical members are, from Parks and Recreation, Parks and Recreation divisions of their cities or communities. We have schools, K through 12, that also have to provide safe, playable fields for their athletes, colleges and universities, and then, of course, the pro athletes or the pro stadiums. So, yeah, it runs that full gamut. And some of them, it is, like I said, just Parks and Rec and making sure that it's ready for, those kids and their very first access to soccer or t-ball, and all the way up through, like I said, the pros. So if, injuries are a big part of athletics, unfortunately, particularly outdoor athletics. And if we could prevent those injuries as they're young and growing, then hopefully that, they can go on to high school, college, pro sports if they are so inclined.
Mhm. So you guys have a wealth of knowledge about growing grass, basically. Is there a little bit of competition amongst the staff of who has the best front lawn for their personal home? Is that a thing at all?
Yeah, there is a little bit of that, but more importantly, we do have an awards program for the sports field of the year in various different categories. And so we have just announced the winners of 11 different awards for this year, and they will be getting their awards at our conference in January. So that's a really exciting thing, and that's a big deal. They love competing. They love having their stuff out there in front of everyone, because we put it out on social and everything else. And we do a couple other smaller ones too, like we do mowing patterns, and I'm sure you've seen on sports fields where they get those cool mowing patterns, and most of that really literally is done with mowers. People assume it's done with paint or different things, but it really has to do with the mowing patterns and the shadows and all of that kind of thing. So we do a contest for that, as well as a one in the summer around patriotism and field design. And so uh, our Stars and Stripes award or competition is what we call it. And that's another social media one where they submit their designs that they've painted on their fields, and then we put them out there for a vote, for everyone to pick their favorite. So there is a lot of that friendly kind of competition for sure.
Yeah, that's super neat. So, were there any local to the Kansas City area winners this year?
Not this year, unfortunately. It's such a varied pool every year, and it's a lot of work actually for them to submit for that Field of the Year award. They have to take all kinds of different recordings of all of their different, field maintenance, what they're doing with their fields, whether it's chemical or non-chemical, and their mowing and all of their, care management practices, as well as taking photos throughout the year. So, people don't typically apply every year. They usually apply when there's, some kind of a big project or some kind of refresh to their field is usually when they will do that.
So tell me about your role. What is your title CEO, but I imagine that entails a lot of different duties. What are your responsibilities for this organization and kind of what is a typical day like for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there is no typical day. But we are a small staff of five. And I, under the board of directors' direction, of course, I'm responsible for the association's achievement of our strategic goals, our mission, all of the programming, and of course, operational and financial management, of course. So, our team works together on everything from our annual conference coming up in January to, these award programs, educational programs that we produce and put out, other resources that we put out for the field managers, but also for our chapters. We have about 30 chapters throughout the US. And so we support those organizations as well as they provide information and resources on the local level, as well as to help spread the word of sports field management being a viable career so that, like yourself, you'd never heard of it. A lot of people have never heard of it. So basically, we're trying to get that word out. And so those chapters are a great asset in working and getting that information to the general communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you guys end up being headquartered out of Lawrence, Kansas? I mean, I guess it's centrally located, but what's the story there?
Yeah. um, and that's a history question. So my predecessor was with the organization for about 18 years. And prior to that, the association had contracted with an association management firm, which typically manages, several smaller associations that don't necessarily have the resources for their own staff. And so when they hired my predecessor, she was actually in Lawrence. And so that was the impetus for moving to Lawrence. And starting in 2020 during COVID, the staff actually went remote for obvious reasons. And the board made the decision because service levels were still just as good. We were taking care of the members. And they decided just to go ahead and leave the staff completely remote. So most of the staff is in the Lawrence area. And we do actually have one remote staff person in the Houston area. So it's it works out well. And there are times where I would love to just be able to spend more time and be able to pop into somebody's office and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? Or, those kinds of things. But, we make it work. And, get together at least once a month if we can, and get together and do that collaborative brainstorming and yeah, really making things work and happen. Everyone's really dedicated to the association and to the profession, and that makes a huge difference as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when you're fully remote like that, it opens up your hiring pool. When you're trying to fill a position, it doesn't have to just be someone here. So you really get the best of the
Absolutely.
best. Yeah, yeah.
You're right. That's how we found our Houston staff person.
Yeah. I will say though, I hate to admit this as a millennial because I am a work from home queen, but me and my partner, when we meet in person, we do get a lot more done. We're like, we'll never admit this ever to anyone, but we do get a lot done in person. So there are
Yeah, I
challenges.
get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we do our monthly meetings, man, we power through and it's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me about being a woman in this organization. I would imagine it being sports tends to lean more male. I used to be a sports reporter and many times would be in a room and look around and be like, oh, I am the only female in this entire room. But your predecessor sounds like was a female as well. Are there a lot of women involved in this field that you don't realize, or are you more the minority?
Yeah, so, well, in association management, I'm not necessarily the minority. And our board, when they were replacing my predecessor when she retired, they made the conscious decision that they wanted an association person versus a sports field management professional. And so that worked well for me. But there are, yes, it is predominantly male organization. It's a predominantly male profession. But we do have a core group of women that are kind of blazing the trail for other women in this organization. About 5% of our membership are women, and they actually have come together not only in our organization, but other green industry organizations as well. And they've created kind of their own women in turf group. And they all work together and they support one another. And like I said, blazing that trail for future women to join the industry. They love to say that they're trying to break that grass ceiling. So it's so they're a powerful group, and they've done a great job in working together and really demonstrating to everyone what people can do when they come together for a common cause. And I love working with them as well as all of our members. But yeah, they're a growing faction for sure.
That is so cute. I love it. When I was a sports reporter, I was involved with the Association of Women in Sports Media. So that was my biggest experience in the association world. And at our annual convention, the Trailblazers, we get on stage and talk about being mailed rats to the press box and, all the things that they faced that were so unbelievably foreign to me. But then now I look back and I'm like, I still was the only female in the room a lot of the time. So it's fun to watch the progress. And it sounds like the 5 was really low. Like, I mean, that is super low. Even in the sports reporting world, I would say it was probably more like 30. What are you guys trying to intentionally recruit that demographic to bring more people into it? Sounds like the women in turf group, probably that would be more their 2D, but where do you see like the
Yeah.
future going with this?
Yeah, actually, we're trying to recruit more people in general. So we want, everyone to feel welcome and included into this industry and into this profession. So, we have a really diverse group, at least academically anyway. So we have PhDs, we have people who've gone the traditional college route, but we have others who literally learned on the job. So, there's so many different ways to enter this profession that's our key is we really want everyone to feel welcome. And we don't care what your background is. We don't care what your educational level is. As long as you're willing to work hard and really learn what turf grass really is all about and the best ways to manage it and how to put your best foot forward and your best field forward, really, that's the key. And so, yeah, we're really recruiting across the board, women as well as, people of color and, people who are not native U.S. citizens. So it's really, we're all about the inclusion.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love it. Have you experienced challenges stepping into this role, not only as a woman, but also not with a sports background, with the association background instead? Have you received any pushback from members or people that you work with in terms of like, well, what do you know? You're from the association area, not the sports area. Has that been a challenge for you to navigate?
Um, I've been actually very, very fortunate. I've got a great board and a lot of great leaders in this organization, past presidents, as well as we have a foundation, and they're all, my first day I was getting calls and emails, let me know what I can do to help. Here's a great resource. So they've all been incredibly supportive because they did see the value in bringing someone who knows how to run the business side of an association. And they knew that I could learn the subject matter that I needed. And frankly, our entire association are subject matter experts, right? So what's one more versus having the 2,500, at my beck and call, so to speak, to help me learn this and help us put together some of the resources and things that we provide to their colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely. What has been like the most surprising or interesting thing that you've learned about this field that you didn't know going into it?
Um, wow. Um, I had to learn a lot. So, but I would really say the safety aspect, really, because I knew obviously having a good green industry background, I'd had had some introduction into the environmental impacts and all of that. And obviously I was familiar with the artistic side of things, with the lines needed for the out of bounds, as well as the beautiful logos and everything that they put on the fields. But one thing that I hadn't thought of was the safety aspects. It just never occurred to me that that was such a high priority as to getting the field out there and having to fix those divots in the field to make sure someone isn't turning an ankle, making sure that the field's not too slick. So someone, if they need to, stop quickly, they can do so without putting extra strain on their knees. So all of those things having to do with the safety really, that was probably the biggest surprise. Then again, just because I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. Okay, last two questions for you. I ask everyone that comes on the show. First one is, what is a great meal that you have had recently out in the Kansas City area?
um, I would have to say my favorite restaurant really is Jalapenos on 151st Street down in Overland Park. Um, they have great food. I've never had anything I disliked. Their enchiladas are to die for. But on top of all the great food, it's a great atmosphere too. They treat everybody like friends and family when you go in there. They recognize regulars by name, and so it's really a great fun place to go. And then you get a great meal, and I never turn down Mexican food.
Yes, me either. I could eat it like more than I care to admit. It's so good.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, last question for you is, where can people connect with you online? Where can they get involved with this organization if they wanted to? All that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is sportsfieldmanagement.org. And on social media, we're at Field Experts. So yeah, we would love to have more people check us out. And if you want more information, there's plenty of ways to contact myself and the rest of my team. And we would love to, hear from people and get more people kind of interested in understanding what sports field managers do, even if it's not something they want to pursue. But it's important information for parents, for their kids, as well as community leaders. And so yeah, we would love to engage with more and more people every day.
Love that. In my sports reporting days, I covered the Royals when they were in the World Series those 2 years. And I remember it was awesome. Such an incredible experience. But we would set up for our live shots down the dirt track. And George, I can't remember what his title is, but he's the one that takes care of the lawn and everything. He was patrolling up and down that grass like, if you set one toe on this grass. And so I from then on, I'm like, this is an art form. They put their literal blood and literal sweat and tears into this. And it's very cool to see that there's a home for them to kind of share their gripes about the reporters walking on their grass together. So I love it.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one as much as I've heard stuff that the players leave on the field, like sunflower seed shells and things.
Oh yeah. Can't gripe at them as much as us though. So well, Laura, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.